Here we have an anti-ballistic door. So what I mean by that is that it's made out of reinforced steel, so it's incredibly strong, very difficult to get through, even with things like a battering ram or a sledgehammer. And the door, the nature of this is that it's not easy to access. And in this case, the methods of access are a mixture of things like fingerprint scanners and facial recognition. And I want to talk to you about each of those methods of access. So we're going to start off with the fingerprint scanner. Now, the idea of this is that it's got my fingerprint biometrically programmed into it. So it recognises that fingerprint, that digit, and when I scan it over the reader, it will use that to unlock the various bolts that lock up the door. And there we go. Now, fingerprint scanners are often touted as being a really good form of security, and it's really interesting to see how that gets applied in movies and film, just because actually what we often see is that there are running jokes around the vulnerabilities of them. In this case, if you've seen a Marvel movie recently, there was a bit of a running gag around the use of sellotape, and the idea was that you could take a fingerprint off of a cup and capture it with a piece of sellotape and run it over a fingerprint scanner, and it would work. And the truth is that that can actually work with some of these scanners. The bit I always find scary with fingerprint scanners as well is that, well, I've only got 10 digits there, so actually if by any chance that fingerprint, that password ever gets hacked or released out into the world, well, that digit is now no longer usable as a password. So yes, okay, it can be great because it's unique to me, but actually there is a potential vulnerability there that I might never be able to use that one again. So actually sometimes human-generated or computer-generated passwords are actually that bit more powerful. So let's have a look at one of our other methods of access to the door. Now in this case, we've got a camera up here, and this camera can do image recognition. So facial recognition, it can recognise my face and let me in. So here we go, it's going to spot me, and it's recognised me there, even popped my name up on screen, and it's unlocked the door. Now, there's a couple of caveats with this at the moment, and one of the big ones is that light can trick it, or changes in the way that I appear can trick it. So for instance, if I was wearing a pair of glasses, the light up on the ceiling could actually be something that might stop that image recognition from working, because it doesn't recognise my face anymore. So actually, that image recognition, that machine learning happening in the background to recognise that particular face has got to be really good, because if not, that facial recognition system is going to fail. Now, there are instances as well where you could take a person who looks similar to me, so my brother, for instance, who looks, I don't think, like me, the camera thinks does look like me. It spots enough recognisable patterns that actually it can open the door. So facial recognition is a really interesting one, because using it as an identifier of an individual person can have weaknesses that make it not as secure as you would think. So let's have a look at a third method of access to the door. So thinking 3 factors of security here. So potentially someone's faked my fingerprint, has got a picture of my brother, and has gotten through those first 2 factors of security. My third factor, hopefully they're not going to get through though. That third factor, a human factor. Notice the door isn't opening very wide. There's a little gap here. The idea is that it's wide enough for me to peek through. Think of it like having a keychain slung across your door, but this one is a virtual keychain. Now, this one, you're not going to get through as hard as you push. It will never open any wider than this. And the idea is that a human can peek through, take a look and see if I'm actually the person that they want to let in. Now, obviously, this is being done in a physical way, but you can do that with cameras of having a person check. The point here is it's a human factor of checking. It's that final human override over the 2 software things to check, well, actually, is this the people I want to let through? If not, they will eventually get tired. The door will close, the bolts will re-engage, and there is just no way that you're getting through that door. For me, this is always a really important thing in security. So having multiple layers is a really important thing, because if there is potentially a vulnerability in one of your layers, then hopefully by the time someone breaks through that vulnerability, the second and third layers have actually allowed some kind of alerting so that you can stop people breaking through your system. And also, of course, more layers makes it more inherently difficult for someone to get through those layers one by one. Now, there is one more method of access to this door which I always find really interesting. You may have noticed there's a little vault over here. Now, the idea of this is I can pop in my secure password, and that could be a unique code to me, and inside is a programmable key. So there's 2 things here. You've got to have the unique code in order to open that vault. The key then itself is programmable, so you can program use cases for it. It might be that you want it to work for 24 hours. It might be that you want it to work for a single entry into the door. But the point here is it creates that physical lock. Once that's been used once, or whatever your use case is, the key then becomes useless. And the only way to then use this key again to gain entry through that door is pop it back inside the vault, close it off, and then the next person will get a different code. And of course, we get a track now in the background. Who used that key? How many times did they use that key? Did they complete the use cases? Different method of access, but again, to the point, it's another layer that we can put on top. It's another layer of checking that we can put in place to make sure that actually, for a secure environment where we might want to get only the right people through, we've got methods of actually locking it down where we're not relying on a single piece of technology. We're relying on multiple to ensure that trust, to ensure that we're really letting through the people that we want to let through into that environment.